Please rise and join me for the pledge of the flag. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay. You have the agenda in front of you, and we need to approve that agenda.
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Okay. All those in favor of tonight's agenda signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Moving on to the study session, I have a board report. And as I think everyone knows, we had an evaluation of Dr. Funk, and the board met in closed session on March 18th, 2019 to evaluate the performance of Superintendent Funk. The board reviewed feedback from those who directly report to Superintendent Funk, had a discussion and concluded that Dr. Funk's strengths include development and support of the administrative team, financial leadership of the district, increasing opportunity for students, and strategic planning. There are opportunities for growth in some areas of communication and professional interactions. The board will assist the superintendent in this regard. So we'll move on to, next we have coding.
I'd like to take the opportunity to introduce, I'll let them introduce themselves, some of my favorite people in the district. Some of my favorites. A couple weeks ago you saw in 60 Minutes about coding and girls and STEM and how important it is in education, the earlier the better. And I asked the soup, I said, we have folks who are on the forefront of this in District 241. So we have some elementary media and classroom, and these are building technology instructional coaches. And then Burke from Southwest here to talk about all the really great things they're doing tonight on coding clubs. So take it away.
So my name is Burke Egner. I'm a STEM teacher at Southwest Middle School, and we're here tonight to talk to you guys a little bit about the coding clubs that we offer at the school. At the foundation of our coding clubs, we talk about the 4 C's that we're trying to embed in students in all curriculum and endeavors that they take, whatever from K-12. Critical thinking, creativity, collaboration, and communication. And all of our coding clubs offer some degree or a great degree of integration of those 4 C's. And the reason that we do this is we're trying to build strength and resilience in our students. And so we're really trying to make our students better critical thinkers, better problem solvers for things that they get thrown at them when they go throughout. So I'm going to come back at the end, but we're going to turn it over to Mark.
So Mark Nekanecki, a 4th grade teacher at Lakeview Elementary. And I just wanted to show you, this is what, to prove there's interest for coding clubs. So this is my classroom after school, and there can be upwards of 80 kids if we don't split them up. So K-5, they go all over the floor. The custodian and I work out how to fix that afterwards. So trying to get the kindergartners to pick up the wrappers. But the key thing I wanted to point out is that our students don't usually know why they're doing this. They just know they want to create stuff rather than consume it. They come to us consuming technology every day, but they want to know how can you make stuff with technology. And for the coding club there, you work with an iPad. The kids are very familiar with touch-centered things, and they can drag and drop those little Lego blocks on the screen to do very simple programs. And the thing that they like is that they can use PBS characters, so there's a direct connection to the things they love. On the right, the coding gets more complicated. They use Chromebooks, and they can get quite involved on those. And here, the nice thing about having a mixed coding club K-5 is the older kids help the younger ones, and they're not helping solve, not telling them what to do, they're helping them model productive struggle. They're showing them that you make mistakes that aren't careless, but like, why doesn't this work? You have to figure it out. They set short and long-term goals. The kids will hear the older ones saying, I want to work on this project. It's taken me, for a 5th grader, 3 sessions of coding club is a long time. Perseverance and a sense of time. I've noticed that there's less of a search for immediate satisfaction and more like I'm working on a project, which we want our students to be able to do. And then failure is not like, not yet, but success is the result of something you did, not something that you walked into the club doing. And I love the bottom left picture. students really do love to do this, and this gal invited her mom, and then the next week she invited grandma. So it's kind of an inverse way of working on some of the gender barriers we have. Rather than the grandma and the mom telling the girl how it's important, the girl's saying, come see it, and they're saying, oh, I want to do it. So we hand out iPads to grandma and mom. Another thing that we're working on is getting more of the girls interested. So this is the first year we've pivoted over, and in the K2 grades, we have more than 50% girls. Just a smidge more, but more than 50%, which is, of course, way more than you'll find with the adult land. And right here, this is nice connection to classroom. We don't ask the kids what they want to do when they grow up. We just ask them, what kind of problems do you want to solve? And then each of those pictures below is an example that we try to Skype with. It might be a minority student, a computer science major. It might be the fellow in the bottom left there who's from a small town, smaller than Albert Lea. It might be someone who's doing cancer research. And then the one in the upper right is an Albert Lea grad that works at NASA. So the kids should have some kind of connection where they see me as in the computer science realm. So next is, sorry. I just point at the top one there. I was working on this yesterday, and when you log into Scratch, it says what's happening. So one of the students was on Scratch on Saturday yesterday, and it wasn't homework. Like, the kids are logging in on their own. They're that interested. So it really does open doors for our students.
Okay, my name is Stacy Waltman. I do a coding club at Hawthorne and Halverson. And we do Scratch Junior, and what Kristen will be sharing too. But I wanted to share some of the unplugged activities that we do. And I brought some samples here. But when you do something unplugged, it's showing the kids you don't have to have a robot or a computer at home to be learning computational thinking. And I've got a picture up here. Computational thinking can be used, it's a segue into programming, but it helps you break up a problem, a big complex problem. You decompose the problem into smaller parts, then you look for patterns, you take just the most important things, and then you go to algorithms. What would coding would be that, so giving the directions step by step. Computational thinking is a fabulous way to segue into the coding. And I have a lot of different things that we do. One of the things that surprised me as being so much fun is we did cup stacking. And so you have a team of 4, and one is the robot, and they go away to another part. The other 3 have to code this by looking at the steps here, and they just write it on paper. And then the robot comes back and has to stack the codes to look like this. This is hidden. And it could be the robot that's making a mistake, or it could be the coder, so we have to go debug it and make fixes. So we can do a lot of that without ever plugging anything in. And then these are just some pictures of some of the different things that we have done. And just a couple more things. There are videos here, but I'm going to move on.
I'm Kristen Seeger, and I am a library media specialist at Sibley and Lakeview, and I do a coding club at each of those schools. What I'm going to talk about today are the Wonder Workshop Dash and Dot robots that we've purchased. All 4 elementary schools, with the help of our PTOs, were able to purchase entire learning kits to use to teach kids how to take the Scratch Junior, the Scratch Blockly code, and really apply it to an actual robot. And so we're taking it one step further and programming these cute little guys. We have a curriculum to follow. We have a set of developmental challenge cards. But then we also have just time for kids to explore. And so right now we have it set up for 3rd through 5th grade, because the challenge cards really do require them to comprehend everything that they're reading. But we can compose music. We can launch ping pong balls and knock the targets off the head. We have plows to move things around. There's just so many different things that they can do with those robots. The kit comes with 6 of the large robots and 6 of the small, and then all of the accessories except for the xylophone. And our PTOs were just super excited to help us get those for our school. So we started them in Coding Club to kind of give Stacy and I an idea of how to use them, and now we're integrating them into our classrooms too, into those content areas. Here are some pictures of our kids using those. Tons of collaboration, critical thinking, creativity, giggling, and frustration. They get a little bit frustrated when they work with them, but that is part of the learning process. And those are videos too you guys can watch later if you have access. Right now it doesn't look like it's going to give them, but you want to try one, Ash, and just see? It might just go to request access from me. That's okay. So the one on the left is showing some boys at Lakeview using the launcher, and they set up an obstacle course almost to get it to knock the targets off of dot, and then the ones on the right are working on a collaborative competition. So competing a little bit with programming, but also working together to complete a task. So, all right, Bert.
So again, I'm Bert Gagner, and I brought with me one of my coders tonight, talk to you a little bit about our coding club that we started at Southwest Middle School that's just for girls, and we call this club Cyber Tigers. And so this is a partnership with Girls Who Code, and the idea of this is we've done a lot of great things, and you'll hear some other things that we're doing at Southwest for everyone, but this is something to try to continue to keep the spark with girls specifically in coding and technology-related STEM career fields. Which is a real lacking of girls pursuing those kinds of careers. So wanted to create a safe space and environment where these girls can flourish and not have to worry about any kind of gender biases or roles or anything like that, and can just do their thing. And so this is her club, so I'm going to let her tell you about it. This is Haley Deming.
So do I click
Yep,
on
hit
this
the
side?
button, and then there you go.
So we meet after school every Tuesday for 2 hours per week, 15, well, in all it'll be 15 weeks at the end. And at the bottom is a quiz that I made with Thunkable.com. And we copied someone else's quiz and we made it our own and did our own things with it. So, yeah.
What are you guys making? What are we going to make?
We're going to make an app, and we thought our app will be like something that people can go into and take a quiz, and it will give them a genre of music, books, movies, a lot of things, just recommendations for people.
So kind of piggyback on that, what we started with is when we started the club, the girls had, my only direction to them was we have to have a purpose. What are we going to do? And so the girls in this club decided what they wanted to do. They decided they wanted to create an app. I've never created an app, so having to figure out how to teach them how to make an app, and so we're learning along together, but that's what they said they wanted to do, so I spend my nights staying one step ahead of them to figure out how to get the apps done. So we're doing good so far. So we use a free program called Thunkable, and the goal is at the end of our 15 weeks to have an app that will be distributed for free on iOS and Android for people in the Albert Lea community that will have book suggestions, recommendations of things to do in the community, sports to play, movie types that you could perhaps go to watch. And so one of the things that they talked about or brainstormed is, we've got all these things to do around here, but we maybe don't know what you want to do or how to get into that. So they decided that they wanted to create an app. The essence of our app, right now we're creating our quizzes, but what essentially is going to happen is, and I haven't taught, this is next week's lesson, we're going to teach them how to take these quizzes and come up with questions that I like to cry when I watch movies. So if you put a 1, that score of 1 is going to go more towards the drama genre, or I like to laugh when I watch movies, that'll go more towards the comedy. And so we're going to take the scores behind the scenes, and depending on what your score is on this quiz, we'll recommend you like drama movies, you like comedy movies, you like these types of movies. So next thing I have to do is figure out what are the 4 genres and then develop questions that will be tailored specifically for those answers. It's fun, right? But you wouldn't say otherwise. We have a lot of fun doing it, and so it's a great time with them. And you guys have any questions for us? That really is the coding clubs that we offer in the district up to middle school. I'll tell you from my end of it, I couldn't do what I do, whether it's in the class or the after-school club, without the work that they're putting at the elementary level, because they're already coming with a foundation in problem-solving and critical thinking and a willingness to explore and learn and try things. Haley will tell you that everything we do is trial and error. We make mistakes. We have fun with it. We look at failure as the first attempt in learning, and we made some apps that didn't work at all, and then we have some that do work, and we just keep plugging away, and I'm learning right alongside them. Anything you want to add?
You said.
Haley, how many weeks are you into the program now?
I'm not sure actually.
We're like
Like 4?
4. Snow days really kind of threw us too, so we're trying to make up and catch up. So we're about 4 weeks into it.
How
So by
many,
the end, you'll be sending out and you'll have the app all done?
Cool.
how many are in the club, Haley?
8?
We have 8 girls
Great,
right now in the club.
I know.
Hoping to get more. First
wish
year,
you had
first
that.
try, so we hope we'll get more next year and keep it going.
I just have a comment more than a question. I think it's fantastic that you're taking the time to do this, and I appreciate, we have our Teacher of the Year here.
For another day or
Kristen.
two.
Yeah. And, I just love the commitment that all of you have to doing things for our kids. And, that's really if I look at our district, what's the most important thing is our teachers and the things that they do for these kids. Yeah, that's by far the most important thing. And so I just want to say thank you. And it's, I think one of the things, and I think I speak for the board when I say this, is when we see things like this really gets us excited because, I remember, even though I'm this age, I do remember what it was like at school. It was more, sit there and you didn't have activities like this. So thank you for all you do. Appreciate your dedication.
And I do want to say thank you to the district too, because the 4 of us have all participated in the Minnesota Coding in the Classroom Leadership Cohort, and we appreciate you supporting us in that and subbing us out for the days that we need to go and paying for our entrance to the summit. I think that's really appreciated, and that's where we've learned and networked with so many different people, so thank you for that.
I don't think we all would have gotten in, except they only take 25 teachers a year statewide, so we're kind of hogging it, but we.
But I think they like having us in it too because we're a rural district and they have a lot of metro people involved, and so it's really nice for them to be doing their outreach kind of outside of the metro too.
I'm sorry. I was just going to say, it's so nice to go there because sometimes you think the metro has so many more things or so many more skills, and we're finding out that's not necessarily the case. So I feel a lot of pride with our students and teachers for what they do know, and also just that feeling of, after taking this cohort, knowing that I don't have to have all the answers. Either you're going to have a student help you or you're going to have a coworker that can help you, and that takes a lot of the scariness away for all these new things that we're trying.
And so, Kristen, last year you were the Teacher of the Year for our Distinguished Educator for the Rochester Area Math Science Partnership. And now they've changed the name of it
STEM forward.
to STEM Forward. And Mark Nikonecki is now Teacher of the Year for that same. Again, it's districts all around Rochester and southeastern Minnesota. So for Albert Lee to have 2 distinguished educators back to back is pretty good.
We're having fun.
The part I like is talking with colleagues and transferring back to class. So the productive struggle and the not having immediate satisfaction reward is really key when you teach math or when you're teaching reading, and the teachers are finding that they can reference that, or the kids will even say like, oh, this is like when I worked on my coding thing for, because more than 5 minutes is a long time if you're 9 years old. So working on a math problem with more than 5 minutes is a big deal. So that's going to really help the classroom too, because that's part of the issue is not the academics, it's how long does it really take to do something. I think sometimes the kids think, I call it sitcom problem, like everything gets wrapped in a half hour. That's not how life works. So sometimes it doesn't get wrapped up at all. So, but that's good. I think like Stacy said, the last thing is just finding out that you don't have to have all the pieces or all the parts or understanding. Just keep a little bit ahead of the kids. Sometimes the kids get ahead of you too. So, but just starting, you go see other people and you realize that we're not so much behind as we're sometimes ahead, sometimes behind, sometimes right where we're supposed to be, and it's changing so fast that you really can't keep up. I mean, next year this tape will look very different. It's a very high growth area, a lot of stuff to do.
Haley, are you able to stay a step ahead of the teachers?
Yes,
I think she will.
music and want to put something in, they want to do something. I'm like, I have no idea how to do that. Go work and I'll figure it out. And, try to get it before they leave for the night. So.
As long as you win every time, Haley, that's all that matters. Let him win.
And three of the four are elderly grads. Sorry, Bert.
That's all right. Yeah.
So that's pretty cool too. So we'll see Haley up here in about 10 years.
Yeah, absolutely.
Thanks,
Thank
guys.
you.
Thank you.
Okay, I think we're on to 4.4, and that's enrollment discussion. What? Oh, I'm sorry.
Hi again, Burke Egner. This is another club that we did the start of the school year this year, the Southwest Siberians, which is a robotics club that we started for middle school students 6th and 7th grade. This is real fast, it's just a quick video on what the game is that we competed in this year.
Welcome to the world's greatest 2 minutes in robotics, the 2018-2019 game, VEX Robotics Competition, Turning Point. Turning Point is played on a 12-foot by 12-foot field by 2 alliances, one red and one blue, made up of 2 teams each. The object of the game is to score more points than the other alliance, using caps, flags, balls, and platforms. Caps are scored for the alliance whose color is facing up at the end of the match. Caps are 9 inches wide, and robots can possess 1 cap at a time. Caps scored on the foam tiles are worth 1 point each. Caps scored on posts are worth 2 points each. Flags are scored for the alliance whose color is facing towards the field at the end of the match. Low flags are worth 1 point each. High flags are worth 2 points each, and can only be toggled by being hit with balls. Balls are 3 inches in diameter, and robots can possess up to 2 balls at once. The platforms in VRC Turning Point are used for parking. Robots that park on their own alliance platform at the end of the match will receive 3 points. Robots that park on the center platform at the end of the match will receive 6 points, but they'll have to hold their ground because there's not much space up there. The VRC Turning Point field has 8 caps, 6 posts, 9 flags, and 20 balls. There are 2 alliance platforms, 1 per alliance, and 1 center platform. Robots will begin each match with 1 ball as a preload. Each match begins with a 15-second autonomous period, where robots will score on their side of the field without any help from their drivers. The alliance that scores more points in the autonomous period is awarded with 4 bonus points added to the final score at the end of the match. The 1-minute 45-second driver control period begins once the autonomous bonus winner has been determined. At the end of the driver control period, after all objects and robots have come to rest, the match will be scored to determine the winning alliance. Detailed rules and game information for VEX Robotics Competition Turning Point can be found at roboticseducation.org.
So that's the competition that we started with this year, and so one of the things that we are doing is this program was, was 100% fundraised this year. Last year was my first year in the district, and so worked with the school to find ways to bring STEM opportunities to the students, and so kind of planning ahead, a little foresight. We worked with leadership and district staff to purchase some robotics kits that would lend into this competition. So we did a semester-long course, exploratory exploration, called Automation Robotics. This year then transitioned that into also offering not only the course in automation robotics, so use the robots in the classroom, but then having an after-school STEM club that focuses on these robotics in a different way. These are all the partners that were very generous and donated to the club, which would not have been possible without their donations to get it off the ground and running, because there's a lot of initial cost to get us up and running. The Robotics Club started in August, right at the start of the school year, and we ran right up until February. We met 3 days a week as we got closer to competition. We would have more meetings 5 days a week, coming on a Saturday. We had one Sunday because we're having some robot problems that we needed to get. The students worked in teams. We actually had so many students want to join the robotics teams. The most we can have on a team is 10 students. So we ended up fielding 4 teams. I just couldn't have any more space to do it. Otherwise, I mean, there were kids that would have loved to do it, but I didn't want to turn anybody away. So we ended up, got 40 kids, 10 students per team, so we ran 4 teams. They're all Southwest Siberians, the Siberians red, white, silver, and blue. And so we competed in 3 regional tournaments around southern Minnesota and the cities. My next goal is, as we build our robotics program, I'd like to bring a regional tournament to Albert Lee and kind of show off and bring the people to us, and as a way to help generate a little revenue to offset the fundraising costs and to do some other things and have a home tournament. That's my goal for next year. I got to get one more under my belt. We did have 2 teams that qualified for the state tournament, and we did very well out of the state tournament. Took a total of 60 teams from all over the state of Minnesota. About 980 teams altogether. We made the top 60 for middle school and high school. There aren't a lot of middle schools that are doing these types of competitions, so a lot of the times when we would go to compete, we're competing against high school teams as well. At the state tournament, we ended up finishing 22nd and 33rd, I think, so we're right in the middle of the pack, so we did pretty good for our first year. The state presence would not have been possible if it wasn't for Dr. Funk and Deputy Voles, who helped find additional funding to help get us to state, because my fundraising efforts really, I didn't think we would do as well as we did, and did everything I could to scrape together to get us the 3 regional tournaments. I had like $80 left in my account when we got a requisition to go to state. So thank you so much for getting us to there. Our club, the teams that we've got, just have some pictures, again, working on the 4 C's. As you saw in that initial video, there's lots of ways to score these robots. Some of the robots didn't have any kind of a launcher, so they left the points on the board with the shooter. Others expanded and extended, and so we had 4 different teams, 4 very different robots, and they had to figure out on their own, what did they want their robot to do? How do they score? What do they think's going to win? How do they want to go? So this is our red and white teams, and then here's our blue and silver teams. And so they have 4 very different robots that they put together. One of the things that we've got, my 7th graders moving on, going up to the high school, are poised and ready to transition into FIRST Robotics at the high school. They just had their regional competition last week. So we're hoping to get some coders and some robotic engineers to help go into the FIRST Robotics team at the high school. My 6th graders are already, can't wait to get going. They figured out that the world tournament is happening in April, and they release next year's game in May. And so there are schools that can work on stuff in May. They're already saying that they want to get together and start building and working on robots over the summer, so I told them that we're going to do that. So we're already going to have, when they release the competition May 1st, my 6th grade students are coming back. They're going to watch the competition. We're going to start getting some stuff together, so when the incoming 5th graders come up and they want to join the robotics, we've got some veterans, some seasoned pros, and hopefully we're going to build a solid robotics club as we're going through. And so it's just another exciting opportunity that we offer at Southwest Middle School for students in the Albert Lee District. You have any questions?
Are you going to have a draft then for the teams next year and pick them out?
I'm working that up, because we're going to have to find something, because the most we could do is we don't have the kits to even field more than 40, nor do I have the supervision that I could do it. So I'm working with Mr. Dibble and Ms. Sievertson to find out what can we do. This year we took everybody, and everybody stayed and participated and was great, and it was a lot, but yeah, we're going to have to figure something out. So.
Sounds like you're as excited as the students.
I love it. It's, I'm just so fortunate that you, the board and the district, help allow me to do these wonderful things. I mean, I've got the greatest job in the world. I get to play with robots and code video games and electronics and circuits, and I love coming to work every day, and I can't thank the leadership and administrators and the board for allowing me to have these opportunities and programs and offer these experiences to the kids, and it's a great time. So. Thank you.
Any other questions or anything?
Great work.
Hey, thank you again for being dedicated like you are and spending the time, and it's great to see. It sounds like you're not home very much, and so. Okay, now our enrollment discussion.
So one of the things that I asked Kathy to do when she came in to the HR realm here was to really take a look at our staffing patterns, and a big part of our staffing is enrollment. And so really Kathy, Mary Jo, myself, Lori met to discuss looking at our enrollment, because Kathy will show you the presentation here, but we have some pressure points in the district as far as buildings that are pretty full, and we're going to share that information with the board tonight, and really just seek a little guidance from you moving forward here on what some possible solutions.
Thank you. So these are our current boundaries, and so this is from a program we are using this year called Guide K-12, and they upload our enrollment every 2 months. So this is from February 2nd. We actually will get new enrollment in a few days here. So you can see kind of the dark blue is Sibley, and then in the middle is Hawthorne, and then you have Lakeview to the top, and then all the way around to the east is Halverson. And then you've got some black lines I've drawn there. So I-90 out to Austin, if we have any open enrollees who come from Austin, they end up at Hawthorne. Everybody else in that eastern region ends up going to Halverson. Just north of Clarks Grove, should we have any open enrollees, north, they would go to Lakeview, and then everybody really from Lakeview all the way around to Highway 65 there at the bottom, open enroll to Sibley, except for Alden. Most of our Alden students, if they open enroll, go to Lakeview. So that just kind of gives you a visual of where we're at and kind of what our enrollment boundaries look like. And this is where we're at in our elementaries. So 2012-13, kind of a base year there. Lakeview was sitting high at 452 and pretty tight, and Sibley was low at 332. Then moving across, we have increased since 13-14 to 401 at Sibley, and then last year 432, and today, as of this morning, 431 at Sibley. And if you look at Lakeview right above, you will see they were at 452 the year before we moved out Clarks Grove students, and they are now at 339. So we've made an adjustment there. We had 66 students in Clarks Grove in 2012-13, and we're down to 46. So that's not the only determinant in why we are maybe where we're at. We still have the same number of classrooms, 26, Halverson 25, 27, 21. The next column is those outside that blue area that I showed you who are enrolling into our elementary. So this doesn't include our pre-K, it doesn't include our 6 through 12, just elementary K-5. So 6 from Halverson, so we don't get many from the east. We have 1 from Hawthorne. We have 17 from Lakeview, and we have 32 from Sibley. Then just some general stats on what do our schools look like. Free and reduced lunch numbers, Halverson is at the highest. Halverson is at 287, Hawthorne is at 288, Lakeview at 167, and Sibley at 198. And then I did some information. I'll give you a little more detail here, but this is the diversity of our schools. So Halverson is 189 white, 215 non-white, and you can see Hawthorne, Lakeview, and Sibley. So just kind of those are the big picture of where we're at. And in particular, I'd like to point out Sibley. Sibley is at 431 students in 21 classrooms. Lakeview is at 339 students in 27 classrooms. And Lakeview has 3 self-contained programs, classrooms in that building, And they do take up some space, but we still have more space at Lakeview right now. If you take a look at Halverson, they're at 330 with 260 classrooms, and Hawthorne 419 with 25 classrooms. So that's just some general kind of where we're going. This is just graphically, you can see this is just enrollment by ethnicity, race and ethnicity, and you can see that Hawthorne is, or Halverson in the upper left corner there is about 46% white, and the rest, they are students of color. So 3 of our buildings look relatively the same, and Halverson looks a little bit different. We really are, what do we do? So, go ahead.
Can you give some insight from what's going on in Sibley or what you're hearing there as far as
Yep.
how this is impacting programming?
They're crowded. Here's some examples of things. So, you know, we got the new art standards this year. So I was working with all the elementary art teachers. We're working through the standards. We had asked Ann Collier, who's our OT consultant, to come in just for fine motor. How do we build the upper body strength in students? And so she's giving lots of tips, and she said, but the best thing you can do is with your kindergarten classrooms, because they're just students coming into school these days have really, they don't have upper body strength. And so part of our job is to help build that. So she said the best thing you can do, and now since then I've seen a lot of research on this, is when you're drawing, don't let kids draw like this on the table. Have the kids lay on the floor, tape their paper under the table, and you will see the first times that you do this, they will have very little stamina to draw. And that's not the purpose, not to have the stamina, but our purpose is to help build it. And as time goes on, you'll see that. And the art teacher at Sibley said, oh my goodness, I can't put my kids on the floor. And I'm like, well, they're kindergartners, why not? And she said, well, she's on a cart. And she said, my art classroom with kindergartners is in the lunchroom. And between when the last lunch is over and the time her class comes in, it's a very short time period. So she said we'd be laying around carrots and different things. They sweep, but you know, you still might miss something. And they don't have time to mop the floor by the time, since she's art on a cart is what we call it, by the last lunch period to when her kindergarten kids are actually coming down, the floor is swept, but there's no time for mopping. So she's like, there's no way I can do that. So then we started talking more about this. This is a concern. And obviously it goes into, you know, she has expressed concerns as an art teacher of that is not fun. And when we talk about job retention for teachers, that's what I think of. We need to give them the best learning opportunities for their students. And so when we talk about Sibley being overcrowded, it is completely overcrowded. And yeah, so I'll let Kathy go from there.
So just, you know, so how did we get there? We know that we moved 66 and now 46 students from Clarks Grove to Sibley, but that wouldn't account for that big change. We know we have 32 open enrollees. We know we have many more open enrollees to the west than we do to the east. We just do. Austin and Albert Lee's borders aren't too far from each other, whereas if we look to the west, we have Glenville Emmons, we have Alden Conger, we have New Richland, Heartland, Ellendale, Geneva. So there just is more opportunities, and we have traditionally moved those students since they're most adjacent to the Sibley school boundary. That's where they've gone. We also know we have a number of in-district transfers. We have a large number between Hawthorne and Halverson to Lakeview and Sibley. We have 3 self-contained programs at Lakeview, so we know almost exclusively, not entirely, but almost exclusively the in-district transfers to Lakeview are to our self-contained program, which is 22 students as of now, and we have 28 at Halverson, so we have some self-contained programming there. So what accounts for the rest of it? Well, certainly the open enrollees, the largest number goes to Sibley. We have a number of students who have multiple addresses.
And we do not ask for utility bills or anything else when students come. We let their parents fill out the documentation, and we've, said if that's where your home address is and it's Sibley or whichever school, that's where you attend. So we did take a kind of a deep look this last week at those addresses, and we don't move students once the school year starts. We don't move them. And so sometimes those addresses are changing in late August or early September. We know students have multiple homes where they live. So we try to honor that choice from their parents. We have a really small number who we think maybe are not really having any address that a student lives in that home school, whichever of those neighborhoods it be. But in particular in Sibley, I think we found one where a home doesn't actually exist at the address that we were given, and a couple that were business addresses. So I don't think we have a gross abuse of that, but we do have a few. So I think it's a combination of open enrollees and students who legitimately have multiple addresses, but also that neighborhood, those neighborhoods, as we look at how big the Sibley boundary is, those are areas where, as a community, we are growing. So as we talk, some options for you as the board to consider. Do we want to designate all new open enrollees to buildings that have capacity, and we as the district would choose that place? Do we want to begin verifying addresses for all of our enrollees, within the school district and out? Do we want to make some minor boundary adjustments between Sibley and Lakeview? And in particular, we would look at where do kids cross major highways now? And could we move them, instead of crossing 13 or Main Street, could we move them to Lakeview if they don't cross a major highway? And if we want to do some boundary adjustments, we would need to look at the impact of that, and do we want to do that this upcoming year? Do we want to phase that in? We certainly, in the past, when we moved students, 5th graders moving out, 4th graders got to stay to finish their 5th grade year in that building, and then K-3 students would have been adjusted. So those are things we've done in the past, and just kind of really digging in deep to our enrollment data this week and last. Sibley is full.
So I have a question on those that come from other districts. So you had 32 that were going into Sibley. If they went to Lakeview, would they not open enroll?
Well, I don't know. I can't speak for the parents. I don't know. I guess.
Basically, we would tell them when they're coming in, here's the school you're going to go to. And right now, looking at the numbers, that school would be Lakeview.
The only time we do that now is if we have students who are in a special program that's only available at one school.
I was talking to Principal Schultz this morning about something else, and then I just told her, we're talking about enrollment, and because she has been saying all year long, Mary Jo, there is no room here. We are packed. We need to deal with this situation. I said, yeah, I know. We're bringing it to the board tonight. I said, what would be some comments that you've seen throughout this year of parent discussions or different things? And kind of what Kathy said, that they'll give us one address when they register their child, and we'll see a whole slew of addresses August 30th, September 1st, second change. And so they would be in a different area. So, when she mentions a verification, that might solve that problem. But again, we're just bringing options here. Another thing that was kind of concerning that she shared with me is that some parents have told her, oh, people are doing this all the time. And it's almost being made a game of it. And that's just concerning. We want more integrity than that. And so I just thought I'd share her comments of the current reality of what she's dealing with as a principal at Sibley and feedback from parents.
So as far as verification, you could just ask for a utility bill in the last 30 days, as easy as that? Okay. I remember, I mean, that was a question, and I think you said yeah, so I didn't mean to seem that that was a directive or something, but I remember a few years ago, we did this, and was it the Clarks Grove people that we were moving, and it was very disruptive for the students that were already going. So I see that one of your options is for new open enrollees, and so the other ones would remain, and then it would just be the new ones that we could assign. That's your idea there?
You know, one of the things we talked about Clarks Grove is we didn't anticipate the large increase in our current population, which has been really beneficial to us as a community and school district. And that's really been helpful for diversifying Sibley as a school, and, you know, broaden the racial and ethnic groups in that school. So, and you always hate to move somebody again after you've just moved them, but that has been a real advantage for that community at Sibley.
I know 25 years ago, 30 or whatever, it was 28 years ago, I think, when we moved to this community. We live over in the Lakeview area on Oriole Drive, and I remember when we visited the school, remember Dave Pashka said, bet you got a third grader there, don't you? I said, yeah, we might. Why? He says, we're full. And I remember that. I mean, that was the way all the classes were full that day, that time in third grade. And I said, well, but we're living here. And he says, we're full. And about 3 weeks later or something like that, they ended up with an opening. But it was very real at the time. We would have been, and it's not a bad thing in Alberta, busing your students. They didn't say where to, but again, they were full, kind of like if Sibley's in that full situation in third grade, they might have to go somewhere else.
I've talked to some people from Clarks Grove, and they didn't like that they were moved once. I sure hope that we don't have to move them again. Okay, good. And then I'd also, I don't know that, I think everyone does adjust, and it does end up being okay. My second grade year, I was bused to Sibley, but my mom had all this anxiety over it, and I know that, like, just talking to families that when it gets changed, the maps get changed, there's a lot of anxiety about moving their child. So if we can prevent that, that would be wonderful. But then we can't have this problem either. So I guess the open enrollees would probably be a good start. You know, they're already, you know, it's not that they have a neighborhood school so much. And then the other thing, the verification of addresses, if like people are kind of abusing that, I get that too. I just wouldn't want to make it hard for those split families, you know, that the student really does have two addresses, and to make it difficult for them. So if we can just make sure that there isn't some burden on them or some hardship on them to prove that they have these two addresses, you know, that would be my big concern there.
And it seems like Sibley's had art on a cart for a period of time. What do the other schools have?
I think this is the first year. I don't. Oh,
No,
Kristen here, second year.
Okay. Have they had it in the past, though?
They did music on a cart.
Music on a cart. Okay, thanks.
Any other questions or comments?
Go ahead. The boundary adjustments, are there some certain lines drawn there? I'm wondering, are some of the Sibley students just off of Front Street or Fountain Street going that way, and might it be easier to bring some of those students to Lakeview, or does that create a lot of issues?
We can bring some ideas to you. You know, and you guys know the numbers better than I do, but what are we looking at, like 50 kids maybe as an adjustment to try to relieve pressure between Sibley and Lakeview really is what folks are, I think, thinking. So they don't have, we don't have the breakdown with us tonight for the board to take a look at. I thought we would just get input from the board on direction. But what I can tell you is, I think we are cognizant of the fact that this impacts families. Dave, I heard the same thing at Lakeview when my 5th and 3rd grader moved here, many years ago. So I think, I think the board and the district need to do something to start moving us in the direction of relieving pressure on Sibley. And, I think the open enrollee thing is a start, but I think it's going to take more than that to do some things here.
Maybe it'll be an issue with starting out with the open enrollees and then verification. In some cases, there's going to be gray areas, but maybe to work with that, but then maybe some slow movement on the boundaries, because it's going to take an issue as we move forward.
And again, I think if we look at it from a K2 or K3 perspective, rather than, okay, bang, you're all moving, I think that that is something, that, okay, we can, we really should be considering as we're moving forward here. But to be, when we're talking equity in the district, I think we want our kids to have similar opportunities in the buildings, and I don't think we're set up for it right now.
And for me, I would support the verification of addresses so there is no abuse of the system, because it's obviously costing kids and crampedness and not equal room to have their classes. Also the open enrollees piece, and then I would be interested to find out maybe some of the Sibley to Lakeview options.
That means right now in Sibley, every single classroom is, there's no.
And Ward 3 of the city has had so much new construction that would make sense that they would be growing there.
I know many years ago when I was on the board, we had a whole 6th grade class go from Hawthorne to Halverson. And, of course, parents, it's harder on them than it really is the kids. But we met with the parents, and they understood the reason why we had to do it at that time. So I don't know if we want to consider that, but that was something that we did years ago. And I went to 3 different elementaries here in Albert Lea, and look how I turned out. Okay.
I know in the past we've talked about maybe having a kindergarten center, age grades type schools. Is that anything that is on the radar at this point?
We've looked at the research on it, and overwhelming, what research tells us is the more transitions we have students go through in their K-12 experience is the least beneficial for them. Well, the research recommends what I like, K-8 buildings.
Talk a little bit about the trends of open enrollment in our district. Has it been about the same, gone up, gone down?
I will say I don't have any trends other than what we have this year. I think what we see is most of our open enrollment comes from Glenville Emmons, but that isn't to say that we aren't. I mean, we see some way out there, and then we see pockets in different spots. And this is, that's just looking from the elementary. I think we have a little over 150 open enrollees, K-12. So, yeah, I don't have any data beside that. Sorry. Yeah. Yeah, we have literally 5 to the east, and I know our numbers say 6. We have somebody who travels to the community and works in the community and brings that person in, but we get 5 to the east, and we have many to the west.
The open enrollment might be an area we can work with, because if our priority is first for the students within our district, the more we can keep those students intact, and then those coming in from the outside, we work around to make the accommodations to best work with the students that are here first, or is that not a good way to look at it?
Well, that's why we presented it as new open enrollees coming in, because if I'm an open enrollee from the Emmons area and I'm going to Sibley, and my kids have been here for 3 years, going to Sibley, and suddenly, yeah, you're an open enrollee, should move, you don't live in our district, we're moving you to Lakeview. You're going to upset some folks that way, I think.
But if you bring it down to, like you were saying, K-3, looking at adjustments as you go.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, you could phase it in at a certain point.
So a thought that occurs to me is, if we do phase movement in, then would we be introducing the possibility where somebody might have a 2nd grader that goes to Lakeview and a 5th grader that goes to Sibley?
Typically, what we would do in that scenario is it's the family choice, and the family choice is this. All right, if you want your kids together, the 5th grader can go to Lakeview, but otherwise, the 2nd grader is going to Lakeview, and the 5th grader will stay at Sibley. So.
That's good. We have some scenario that's going to be uncomfortable. I think it'd be prudent to get some input from the parents if it's possible. There could be some options there.
I think, Kim, I don't know if you were on the board then, but I know Jill was a number of years ago when we did the Clark's Grove shift from Lakeview to Sibley. We actually held a board meeting in Clark's Grove and got their input before we did it. And so, whatever we decide here, if we do anything, if we do any shift or adjustment, I definitely would recommend that we at least have a conversation with folks at Sibley to, let them know, lay out the situation for them and talk through some possible solutions.
I think anytime we do change, whenever we mandate a change, it's never going to be a popular option with the parents. So communication will be a big key for that.
Always is. Okay, thanks for the information. Next, we have a 403B update. Lori?
Mr. Chairman, members of the board, Dr. Funk. Just to give you an update where we're at with our 403B vendor selection. We have an all-staff meeting scheduled for this Thursday. We're going to have our consultant, Brian Winkles from CBiz, as well as a VALIC representative presenting information on the proposal of the new record keeper of VALIC. Just to give you a little summary, back in October, we started our formal process of going through a request for proposal to look for a new record keeper / vendor. So with this process, we were looking to make improvements in a couple things. One, we were looking for a record keeper that was functioning more accurately, better for the employees with their 403B retirement account. And also a big effort with this process is to look at ways to reduce fees that the employees are bearing on their 403B accounts, as those fees are paid by the employee. Currently, the Aspire arrangement, our 403B plan right now is with Aspire as the record keeper, and employees are paying all fees combined of 1.25%. The VALIC proposal would reduce that fee for the employee to 0.6%, so cutting it in half. And so we'll be providing all the details on the proposal on Thursday. They've been getting emails, and of course this whole process has been we've been utilizing the 4-3B committee, which has representatives from each collective bargaining unit serving on the committee, and so we've had many meetings throughout the year regarding this. And now we are at the point then after the presentation, each unit will actually most likely formally vote. It's up to that unit to determine if they're going to come to consensus or formally vote. And so far, we already have one unit, and the support staff unit has voted unanimously yes to move to VALIC. And so how this will work is each unit will make their own determination. So those that vote yes will move to VALIC. If there are any that do not vote yes and they vote no, then they would stay with Aspire. That is how that process would work. And so by mid-April, I would anticipate that units will have had their opportunity and enough time to process their voting process and to inform me of their decision. And then with that, we will have an approximate 90 days of conversion timeline for those units that select to move to VALIC to have their accounts actually moved over to the new record keeper. So it'll be around August 1st when that would be completed. And then what we'll be doing going forward is a lot of educational sessions. This is going to be something new that we're going to provide to the staff of education, whether that is presentations in their building by VALIC. They'll make available like one-on-one sessions, and we will have that throughout the year. And so we're really hoping to help educate the staff so they better understand this benefit that they have and assist with their retirement planning, basically. So that's where we're at with the process.
Any questions?
With a potential split, if one, two, or more of the units would decide to vote no and stay with Aspire, how much of a accounting nightmare will that create for the district?
Basically, it's a payroll process. Instead of having one vendor, it'll be two. It won't be a problem.
Just add one and leave the old one like it was.
Yep.
I do have a question regarding, a lot of them are with financial planners here in town. And a question I would have is, do they have the option to keep their money with that group, or do they need to go the way everyone votes?
So it's unit by unit. So if a unit votes to go to VALIC, then everyone in that unit will move. One thing I should emphasize is, like I mentioned, the cost-saving piece for the employee. So a big component of that cost savings is removing of commission. Right now, 0.5% is being charged to the employee for commission to that local financial advisor, and all commissions will be removed under the VALIC model. And so there's reduced fees not only in the record-keeping piece, but also no commission. Now, financial advisors will be provided through VALIC. VALIC will have their representatives that will provide that service to our employees, but also there is an avenue for any local financial advisor that chooses to, with approval, have to determine our method, like they have 10 clients, some threshold to get registered with VALIC. So there is that opportunity for a local financial advisor to get registered with VALIC so they can serve that client they've had, be able to access that client's information as they might meet with that, continue that relationship with that local financial advisor. The caveat is they will not get commission. But VALIC has made that as an option to us that we can offer to the local financial advisors.
If they go straight with VALIC, then basically they're losing their own personal representative, or will they have one with VALIC, or will they just call an 800 number and that's who they get that day?
So there's a variety of ways that will be addressed. So yes, there will be 3 VALIC representatives that will be assigned to Albert Lea Public Schools. So that will be made available to the employee. Now, if they certainly have a, want to make a call, obviously the VALIC reps are available. So there's a variety of ways that can be provided. And, but yes, if that employee chooses and they want to continue the relationship with their local financial advisors that they've been using for years, they can still do that. Does that answer your question?
Okay, thank you very much. I'd entertain a motion to adjourn. Is there a second? Second. Meeting's adjourned.